G'day and welcome to the TheJadeRat. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. Today we're going to be trying out the Schmincke watercolor set. I believe this is the basic, standard 12 pan, full pan set. They've got 2 of each primary color and then a couple of earth tones and interesting mixes that we'll swatch a little bit later. As you can see, we've got a lovely box with foam on the inside to keep everything in place, and of course this wonderful brush that has come along with a Da Vinci size 6 synthetic brush made in Germany. It's quite soft. The bristles are a little bit crispy there in that video, but once it gets wet then it works quite well. Now we've got cadmium yellow light, a crispy satisfying opening there, Turner's yellow, warmer yellow, next we've got cadmium red light, and also shaky cam footage, and then our cool red, which is a matte red dark, a warm blue with Delft blue, a cooler blue with ultramarine, cobalt turquoise, I think one of the highlights of this palette, it's a little bit tacky, you can see there, cobalt green dark, another one of my favorites in this palette, really nice coloration there. Transparent ochre, the classic burnt sienna, another classic earth tone sepia, and finally the special edition yellow gold. As you can see there, it's sticking a little bit to the packet. I will use that sticky part on the packaging later in the swatches, but you can see the wonderful reflective surface there. These are, I believe, hand poured pans, so you can see how it's sort of sitting slightly above, and it is of course a little bit tacky to the touch. And there they are. You can see the gloss there. Now for the swatches. I'll be using that same size 6 Da Vinci brush that came with the set to do the swatches, and yeah, it's quite a nice brush to use. Now onto the swatches. First we're starting off with cadmium yellow light, number 224. Light fastness is 4 stars, semi-opaque, and it is a staining pigment or colour. Cooler yellow, and you can see it is quite opaque just by how much it is building up onto the brush there. Next we've got Turner's yellow, number 219. Again, light fastness 4 stars, semi-opaque, and it is again a staining colour. Next we've got cadmium red light, number 349. Again, 4 stars with light fastness. It is opaque, however, and semi-staining. Our cooler red now, madder red dark, number 354. Light fastness 4 stars, semi-transparent, non-staining. And it goes towards pink, as you can see when you water it down. Next we've got Delft blue, number 482. Again, 4 stars with light fastness, opaque, and semi-staining. Ultramarine blue, number 494. 4 stars once again with light fastness, semi-transparent, and staining. Cobalt turquoise, number 509. It is actually granulating as well, a semi-opaque and semi-staining, and a really bright colour too. Love it. Cobalt green dark, number 533. Again, granular, opaque, staining, and both of these, cobalt turquoise and cobalt green dark, have a light fastness rating of 5 stars. Next, transparent ochre, 657, 5 stars once again with light fastness. It is transparent and staining. Up next, we've got burnt sienna, number 661, 5 star light fastness, semi-opaque, and staining. These are really good for the earth tones, sort of a yellow earth tone, red earth tone, and then a cooler earth tone with sepia, number 663, 4 star light fastness, semi-opaque, and semi-staining. And finally, with this special edition yellow gold, apparently the number is 897. However, on the packaging it's not actually written. I had to look this up, and I could not find any information about it directly, but on the Schmincke website the closest is 893, which is gold, and that has a 4-star rating, and it is semi-staining and semi-opaque. So I'm going to assume it assumes similar properties to that. You can see that when they dry, they do go towards blooming quite a bit, especially the transparent leaning pigments or colours, like cadmium red light, Delft blue, transparent ochre, have a lot of blooming. And here are some colour mixes that I tried out. You can see a little bit of the sparkle there in the first few, where the gold pieces or gold flakes have still remained in the brush. Still using that Da Vinci size 6. And we've got a bunch of mixes here, mostly opposite colours and a little bit of a colour wheel, just to see how they go about counteracting each other, making greys, because there isn't a Payne's grey or something. So I did have to check that out, especially since the reference image for today's time lapse has a lot of grey and dark black sort of coloration, a lot of grey tones there. And this is actually from a movie that I'm one of my favorites, and it is The Matrix. So this is actually Trinity, and she is one of my favorite characters in that movie. very cool. And as you can see there, I am building up the watercolor layers, especially the background first, just so that I can get a good gauge of the skin tones. The reference image is taken with like an underlighting. It is a screenshot from the movie, and particularly in the point where they're in an elevator shaft. So there's an underlighting there, and it is a little bit different to sort of standard lighting, but very sort of dramatic. I've masked off certain areas that I want to remain clear or white. These are especially sort of the shine points on her clothes, because the clothes are quite shiny and reflective. And of course the places where the light hits, top of the hair, top of the shoulders, so on, and top of the ear. There's a small bit there. Sunglasses as well. We're now building up the colours in the skin, using a lot of that green tinged sort of skin tone, because of course the matrix does have a greenish tinge to it, and as such everything is a little bit on the greeny side. Also making a note that generally black or dark grey colours tend to go towards the blue side if we were in a normal coloration, but because the matrix has that underlying green tinge to it, I guess, all the time, the black colour is actually becomes warmer than it would otherwise have been. So you can see that I'm adding grey, but the grey is not quite a bluey grey, it's more of a greeny grey. One thing I've noticed about these watercolours in particular is that when you do a bunch of layers over the top of each other, for example with the black of her tank top, it still tends to push around a lot of the colours underneath. You'll see it here when we do the overlay shortly. We'll try and do some glazing to get that green tinge. There you go. You can see that bleeding there, and it reactivates the colours underneath quite significantly. And there's a bit of smearing, so that's likely due to the staining versus non-staining properties of the colours themselves, but it was something that I had to work around. And you can see that I'm adding yellow, both Turner's yellow and cadmium yellow light, which are more on the opaque side, to sort of push back against the translucent glazes that went before that, and sort of to try and to regain the structure of her face again after it bled out of her sunglasses, which she's wearing in the dark for some reason. I guess it's a thing to do in the Matrix. Everybody gets the cool shades for some reason. Once again, going through darkening up the colours, just like most watercolours, if not all watercolours, Schmincke paints do lighten as they dry, quite significantly actually. Like the change is really different between the wet colour and the dried colour. Even on the pan, like when you see the pans when they're dry, they've got this sort of glossy, vibrant look about them, and then the moment they interact with a wet brush, they start getting activated and they start to lose some of the gloss, which seems weird because it's getting wet, but it loses that gloss, especially for colors like cobalt turquoise. You can see at the top of the screen it will start looking a little bit more matte, and then when you apply it through, then it'll dry with that color. So yeah, one thing is really look through your swatches. That's what I did there. You can see on the right side I really kept the swatches on hand, because the palette doesn't really indicate how the color will look when it's watered down or when it's dry, because of course it's so concentrated in the pan itself. And here I am fiddling with the hardest part of the face, I think, which is like the mouth area, and getting the lighting correct, especially since it is lit from the bottom. Again, putting in these dramatic shadows, which seem really intense to put as a skin shadow. Like Carrie-Anne Moss is quite fair in complexion, so to put in such a extreme greyish shadow seems odd. But again, because we've filled in that background beforehand, it doesn't look as jarring, and it isn't, the contrast isn't as awful to look at. Going in there on her face, just readjusting some of the shadows to make sure that you can really see how she looks. Removing the masking fluid, probably my favorite part of the painting. I like removing the masking fluid. It's satisfying to see the crisp edges left behind, and now softening out some of the harsh marks made by the masking fluid. I actually apply masking fluid using one of those nail art dotting tools to avoid ruining my brushes, and it's not as neat of an application as using a brush, but it is good to control the shape. Like, you won't get fancy lines out of it or really thin lines, but you will get a solid glob of the masking fluid, and is less likely to rip the paper. Now I'm taking a little bit of artistic liberty here, especially with the skin tones. They're not that warm in the original picture, but I did add a little bit of warmth to sort of push the facial features a little bit more, and that under lighting a little bit more, to see that, you know, her shoulder is getting a lot of that yellow light. Her neck and chin are also getting that yellow light, so they get pushed forward. But yeah, that's it. That's the Schmincke set. Apparently this is a limited edition set. I'm not quite sure, because it seems quite abundantly available, especially online. But yeah, had a good time painting this. You do need to watch out for that reactivation of the colour, but it was good. With that said and done, this box is made out of oak, and it's quite sturdy. It doesn't have a latch to close down, but it stays down quite well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care, get vaccinated, and yeah, have a good one. See ya.